Hello, I am Nav Bogle, and this is my second submission for the Digital Media Studio 1, where in this video I'll be demonstrating the scripts which I had implemented into my 3D project to generate the game which you see before you. So for the timer script there are two variables, one variable being seconds and the other being minutes. And every frame there is a second wait, and the seconds are set to +1 to increment the seconds value by +1. It then checks to see if the seconds have equaled 60, and if that is the case, then the minutes are set to +1 and the seconds will reset back down to 0. So this is the minute script that I use to display the minutes on the heads-up display. So this script is binding to text on the heads-up display. So here I cast it to where the timer script was stored, that being the game mode itself. I then hooked the game mode to the object node, and using the established communication link, the minutes variable was referenced in the script and then converted into a text string to be displayed on the heads-up display. So with the second script for the heads-up display, the exact same procedure which was used for the minutes was utilized for the seconds. However, with the seconds script, the only difference was instead of getting a reference to the minutes variable, I got a reference to the seconds variable and converted that to a text string for the text block on the heads-up display to display or to output the seconds to the display to the user. Okay, so this is the script for the heads-up display widget, and it's a fairly simple script. So basically what it's saying is upon the game actually beginning, a heads-up display widget is created and the class is HUD, so that's the that was the name of my widget, which is what I created, and it's basically adding it to the viewport. So this script is basically responsible for the heads-up display being shown and displayed in the viewport. So this script here is basically the functionality behind the health bar. So this script is attached to the health variable, and basically without this script, the health bar on the heads-up display would not function whatsoever. So in this script, the health variable is being referenced, and as the blueprint class was different, I needed to actually cast to the character. The get player character node is obtaining the character information and feeding it into the cast to the third person character node. And a reference is also being made to the health variable. So for the script, when it comes to the player sustaining damage as a result of the fire, basically there's an overlap function, so that is casted to the character, and this script is basically telling the engine whether the player is in radius of the fire or not. And if the player is, then basically the specified quantity of the player's health is taken away from the player. If the player's health reduces to 0 or below, basically the player is killed off, a death animation is played, and the death screen appears alongside a button which the player can use to navigate their way to the main menu and resume the gameplay. If the player's health basically is above 0, then basically what's going to happen is the damage is going to continuously increment until the player's health does either reach 0 or until the player moves out of the radius of the fire area, which is the variable which I had set up to determine the radius in which the player needs to be in order to sustain damage. So the script for the water itself was very similar to that of the script for the fire and the way it inflicted damage upon the player. However, with the water script there are a few subtle differences. So for the fire I used a float minus float at one point to tell the engine that if the player is within the radius, then minus 0.1 of the player's health would be taken away. However, with the water, if the player is within radius, then the player gains 0.025 health points back. And another difference is there is no death animation on the end of the branch right at the end, because the player doesn't die in this scenario regardless. The player just gets healed. And a different variable called player in water is called upon. So for the death blueprint, I needed to create a function that I could call from different blueprints at any particular point. So this function is responsible for telling the player to die as well as disabling the inputs. In the script itself, the target for the play animation is the mesh. Character mesh is what the animation is going to be applied to. And whilst this is all happening, the inputs will all be disabled and the game over widget would be created. So this is basically the death screen which is appearing at this point in time. So then I connected another node to it, which is telling it to add it to the viewport. After that, it is being casted to the player controller. I'd have to show the mouse cursor, which is also connected to the cast to player controller node. Anyway, so this is a fairly simple script. So basically what it's doing is playing the animation for the death screen, because I wanted the death screen to actually fade in. I have an event construct and it's linked up to a play animation node, and in the animation node there's also a fade in which is also connected up to it. The death screen itself was actually animated through the death screen widget blueprint which I had created. So this is the level blueprint for the actual level itself. So there are two scripts here. So one is triggered upon the game actually starting. So this one on the top basically disables the mouse cursor and just sets the input mode to game only, and the one below it is what triggers the cutscene during the gameplay. So within the pool there is a trigger box, so once the player actually walks into this trigger box, an event is triggered. I ended up creating this cutscene using the matinee actor, and the trigger box is what gets the animation to play within the game. So this here is the main menu script, and basically what it's doing is it's saying as soon as the level loads, the main menu widget will be created and added to the viewport. On top of that, the mouse cursor will be set to show, and the set input mode will UI only will be targeted towards the main menu specifically, so the user will be able to click the buttons on the main menu. So this right here is the pause menu script. So basically the engine is checking to see whether the pause menu has been created or not. If it has not, then the pause menu widget gets created and the return value is promoted to a variable, and that variable being the pause menu, and it is added to the viewport, and it is set to UI input mode only, because at that particular point in time the only thing you want the user to be interacting with is the UI. So as soon as the menu pops up, the cursor is to be displayed alongside it, so that the user is able to interact with the buttons on the pause menu. So displayed on screen now will be the unpause game function. So this is the exact opposite of the pause game function which was previously displayed. So for the unpause game function, instead of adding any new widgets, I have simply removed all of the widgets with this function, with the script, so that the player can resume the gameplay. And I've also set mouse cursor to false, as I don't want the mouse cursor to be displayed in game. In order for the player to actually pause the game, I needed to go into the project settings and actually assign a key which would result in the game pausing. So that ended up being P. So upon the input action being pressed, the game will simply pause. Okay, so these three scripts on screen now are responsible for the functionality which the buttons possess on the menu. So for the resume button, there's an on-click event. Every single one of these buttons features an on-click event. So once the button has been clicked, it casts to the third person character, gets the player pawn and unpauses the game, resuming the gameplay. For the exit to main menu button, upon the button being clicked, the level main menu opens up. So that is basically the main menu level. To quit the game, and the get player controller function is the specific player. The game is quit. I encountered a couple of problems whilst developing my 3D game. One being I never actually came around to adding any material properties to any of the meshes whatsoever. Number 2 being, every time I attempted to use the foliage, my Unreal Engine would crash, so I was only able to add a couple of rocks and that was it.